First Town Hall are all of our colleagues, Councilmember Mitch Brown, President Pro Tem Elizabeth Brown, Councilmember Rob Dorns, Councilmember Shayla Favor, Councilmember Tyson, and Councilmember Remy. Today, we'll be talking with Edward Johnson, who is the Policy Director for Public Health, about the status of COVID-19 in Columbus and how Columbus Public Health is responding. Then we'll hear about social services from Councilmember Priscilla Tyson and Mike Corey, who is the Executive Director of the Human Service Chamber of Franklin County. After that, Council's Housing Chair, Shayla Favor, will talk about evictions and available resources with Melissa Benson, an attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Columbus. Finally, we'll hear from the Public Utilities Chair, Rob Dorns, and Director of Public Utilities, Tracy Davies, about how they are working to keep water running for Columbus residents. We've been collecting your questions by email and by social media, and we have several in front of us right here. I'll be asking some of those questions today. With that being said, can all of my colleagues and all the folks that are on this Teletown Hall wave to Columbus so they know that we're here and that we see? And I see Caroline. Is that Caroline? No, that's Russell. Russell, hey, man. All right. I would like to welcome Edward Johnson, Policy Director at Columbus Public Health. Thanks for joining us today, Edward. Can you give us an overview of of where things stand, the current situation with COVID-19 in Columbus?
Thanks for having me, Council President, and thank you to all of the members of Columbus City Council. On behalf of the Health Commissioner, Dr. Roberts, and our Board of Health, we're very happy to be here and send our best wishes to you and to all the residents of Columbus. Just to get started, because there is a very real human toll that comes from this pandemic, I am regrettably here to inform you we have had our second death, a 71-year-old male with underlying health conditions. And so we never want to forget that there are real human lives that are involved in all of this. But as a situational report, as of today, the cities of Columbus and Worthington have 228 confirmed cases of individuals with COVID-19. 14 of those cases require hospitalization. 28% of those cases are healthcare workers. And most presciently, I think, to underscore that this impacts everybody, 83% of our cases are individuals between the age of 20 and 59 years old. So when we talk about, yes, folks over 60 or over 65 are very much at risk, this disease affects everyone. Everyone gets it. So we have to protect our nurses, our doctors, medical assistants, and respiratory therapists by staying at home. In terms of the healthcare update, Columbus Public Health is on a phone call every day speaking to the chief medical officers of each hospital system locally. So the community knows our hospitals are currently at 50 to 70% of their bed capacity as they prepare for a surge. And that's why it's important that the governor and Dr. Acton ask hospitals to forego elective procedures at this time. Additionally, I'm sure many folks have seen the Greater Columbus Convention Center is being deputized to be designated for overflow from our hospital system as we move forward. In terms of what the public can do, we really urge everyone to respect the governor's stay-at-home order. You may not be on the front line, you may not be a doctor or a nurse, but you can still save lives. Staying at home helps save my mother's life, who's undergoing a procedure that makes her immunocompromised right now. It saves my grandmother's life, who's 92 years old with multiple underlying health conditions. So if we stay at home, if we socially distance, if we practice proper and good hygiene, like hand washing with soap and warm water, and we protect our at-risk populations, we can save lives, each and every one of us. And lastly, just so that folks are prepared locally and even throughout the state, Ohio will likely hit its peak sometime in April in terms of number of confirmed cases and most likely and unfortunately deaths from COVID-19. And as Dr. Acton mentioned, her new patented phrase, flattening the curve, we have to do everything we can possibly do to avoid a double peak or an M-shaped curve So just because we hit our peak sometime this month in April doesn't mean that we won't continue to respect and adhere to the stay-at-home orders, to socially distance, and to practice good hygiene and hand washing. Thank you,
Thanks,
Council President.
Edward. We have a couple questions from, I think this one came from Facebook. And also to my other colleagues, after I ask this question, I'll open it up to council members if they have a question or so for Edward, if you'd like to ask. This question came from Benjamin Barth, and he's asking, I've been hearing many reports from coworkers about large groups of people, especially children, congregating in parks and doing activities such as pickup basketball. What is the city's guidance and what are our actions in enforcing that social distancing in our public spaces?
Absolutely. We've been working with the Columbus Department, the Department of Recreation and Parks, to encourage folks to put up signage and to let them know playgrounds are high-touch areas. We shouldn't have our children congregating there because of the potential for them to pick up the virus and then share it with others, unfortunately. Additionally, when it comes to pickup basketball, we'll be putting up signage as well, but we've also seen that some hoops have had to be taken down or lids put on them because this is a type of sport where you're in close contact. And so physical exercise is absolutely important. And if you love basketball, there's also opportunities for conditioning. You can still get out there, you can still run, you can still be physically active, but some of these sports where you're going to be in close contact with folks, we have to forego for a period of time.
Thank you. Thank you, Edward. Another question from Phil Edelsberg. It says, are you preparing the convention center to handle the offload of hospital patients? Could you talk about what we know about what's happening at the convention center, Edward?
Absolutely. As we said, our major hospital systems are all prepared to send overflow patients to the convention center. As that comes online, we want to be clear that no one should go to the convention center seeking care. You still have to go through your healthcare provider. You still have to go through the hospital. And if you're in need of a certain level of care, they may keep you at the hospital. The only way that you would get to the convention center for care is by being referred to the convention center by one of our hospital systems.
I want to just wave, council members, if you have a question or want to jump in. The next question is from Heather Voldenik. When the cases are updated daily on the news, they also say Columbus and Worthington. Is Worthington the only suburb with known cases?
No, not at all. Columbus Public Health is the local health department for both cities of Columbus and Worthington. So if you look at the Franklin County numbers, they're always going to be a little bit larger than the number that Columbus Public Health provides for our jurisdiction. But this is a disease that is affecting residents throughout all of Franklin County and most of our jurisdictions.
Thank you. Our final question that came online is a pet-friendly question. Is it probable that pets' fur can carry the virus after exposure to an unknown carrier from vets' offices, kennels, or groomers, etc.?
It's certainly possible for hair to carry the virus within it, and so we do encourage folks to, wash regularly, understanding that grooming has to occur with animals as well. So it is a possibility, and that's why we encourage folks to socially distance and to ensure that you're not coming into contact with folks, respecting that 6 feet barrier whenever possible.
Thank you, Edward. Do any of my council members have any questions for Edward for public health right now? Seeing none, thank you so much, Edward. We really appreciate all the work that all of our health workers are doing right now. Please pass along council's appreciation to Dr. Roberts, her team, and really all those on the front lines that you guys are engaging with. You are keeping us safe.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So as a quick reminder to everyone at home, and I do hope you're watching this from home, our public health officials have asked that we practice social distancing. That means that if you are taking a walk, that means if you aren't taking a walk restocking the fridge, or picking up prescriptions, that we ask that you take it easy. We ask that you stay at your house. If you need to go out or still have to work, stay at least 6 feet away from other people. It's not just about keeping ourselves healthy, it's about protecting our families and our friends and our neighbors. At this time, I'd like to introduce Health and Human Services Chair Priscilla Tyson and Mike Corey, Executive Director for the Human Service Chamber. They're going to discuss how things are going for local nonprofits and how nonprofits have been stepping up to the plate. Councilmember Tyson.
Right. I want to thank everyone who is joining my colleagues and I today, Council President Harden, Council Members Favor and Dorans for this town hall, but also Council Member Mitchell Brown, Elizabeth Brown, and Council Member Remy. Again, I'm Council Member Priscilla Tyson, Chair of Council's Health and Human Services and Workforce Development Committees. I also want to acknowledge Michael Corey for doing such a tremendous job that he is doing supporting our human service organizations. And so thank you, Michael, for participating today. Our world has certainly changed in the last few weeks, and our nonprofit partners have been swift in adapting to this rapidly changing environment. Many have transitioned operations, allowing staff to work remotely while still remaining open to serve our Columbus residents. As it relates to food access, I continue to champion the goals of the food plan, and access to food is critical for our residents at this time. Many food pantries and soup kitchens are open. There are several Columbus public school sites offering meals to students and youth under the age of 18. We also have restaurants that are offering free or reduced price meals. Information for these services can be found on the Mid-Ohio Food Bank website, and there is a link to a resource guide on Columbus Public Health's coronavirus webpage. In these times of uncertainty, I want to assure our social service partners that the city will continue supporting your efforts. We plan to honor this commitment by providing funds for the second cycle of funding for social services that were awarded grants from our city. We hope to pass legislation for funding when council reconvenes. While this funding is not in response to COVID-19, we know that it is important. Our nonprofit partners are continuing to operate, and funding is needed. Further, I want to applaud organizations such as the United Way and the Columbus Foundation that have been able to leverage contributions to provide emergency funding for nonprofit organizations. I understand the United Way is accepting applications for their existing member agencies and has selected its first round of organizations that will receive dollars this week. In addition, the Columbus Foundation is accepting applications from 501c3 nonprofit organizations in Franklin County that have been directly impacted by the coronavirus. Both organizations are expediting the review of the applications in order to quickly address the needs of our community. I also just want to mention, I'm sure Councilmember Favor may share some information, but certainly I think people realize that we were having money that we had set back to provide to the community for food or shelter. And certainly Council President Harden and Councilmember and all of our council members certainly are certainly supporting the Community Shelter Board at this time, focusing on coronavirus patients. I know today's focus is Health and Human Services, but I also want to mention the Workforce Development event that will be before transitioning to Michael. We know many people are in the need of employment. The Central Ohio Reemployment and Resource Virtual Hiring Event is being hosted by Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio. Ohio means jobs of Columbus and Franklin County, the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, One Columbus, and WBNS 10 TV. The virtual hiring events will occur every week throughout the month of April, beginning on this Thursday at 8 a.m. and ending on Saturday from 11:59 p.m. Job seekers can register for the virtual hiring event each week starting at Tuesday at 8 a.m. at omjcfc.org. I hope this information has been helpful. If you have any questions about any of the resources that I mentioned during this town hall, please contact my office at 614-645-2932. Again, 614-645-2932. And with that, I will turn it over to Michael Corey, the Executive Director of the Human Service Chamber.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. Thank you, Council President Hardin and members of City Council, and to the community of Columbus. It's an unfortunate honor to speak with you today about the state of nonprofits and health and human services right now, and what our agencies are trying to do as this crisis continues to unfortunately escalate. First, let me give you a little bit of background. Our organization is called the Human Service Chamber. We're essentially a chamber of commerce for 80 nonprofit organizations in Franklin County, in housing, healthcare, homelessness, education, childcare, immigration, workforce, reentry, a wide range of organizations, and all of them are being negatively affected by this crisis right now. But similarly, all of them are stepping up as best they can to provide the services they need to provide at this time of escalating need. Some of them are a little bit more urgently needed than others right now, given the state of things. And some of them have been preparing for this because of the work that they do. For example, all of our food-related organizations have been scaling up their work for the last several weeks in advance of this crisis becoming or finding itself on everyone's radar. Our homelessness organizations, our childcare organizations, our education organizations, our behavioral health organizations, all trying to innovate in real time with limited resources and a surging need. And I think that's the message I want to leave everyone with today. The need is surging right now. We know that the unemployment figures and applications have soared at exponential rates. And those folks are turning to our organizations for help, in addition to government organizations and others. And they're turning to organizations for food, for help finding work, for healthcare, for behavioral health and physical health alike, for transportation and other things. And it's a lot of steep challenges, and our agencies are doing all they can to meet those needs. Let me tell you about a few things in particular where agencies are stepping up. The Mid-Ohio Food Bank and Life Care Alliance and Children's Hunger Alliance are all working hard with partners across sectors to deliver food and make sure food is delivered in a safe and responsible way, either with or without volunteers. And there are lots of volunteer opportunities available in that space alone. Our education organizations and behavioral health organizations, among others, have turned online to provide their services. That creates unique challenges and unfortunately underscores a lot of the inequities that still exist and do exist and have long existed in trying to deliver those services. But our folks are working hard, whether it's through a simple phone call or through web-based video conferences like this, trying to make sure they're connected with their clients and people that need help right now. Our mental health organizations in particular are trying to be responsive to the need. And a lot of times, just like our food pantries, are seeing clients that they haven't seen before, because this is a stressful time, and it's okay to say this is a stressful time and I need help. Our agencies are trying to step up and meet that need too. Our homeless shelters are working very hard to deal with a crisis that is unfortunately not well suited for the way that we house homeless people. We need to make sure that there's separation. That's a challenge with a disease like this. And with the Community Shelter Board and a lot of our agencies working very, very diligently, they have found ways in which try and address this and get ready for the surge that we know is coming a few weeks from now in our community. Let me tell you as well what we're doing to try and support our organizations. We're trying to create as many avenues for dollars to come into our sector as we can at the federal level and with our philanthropic partners locally and across the state. We've got great support from the Columbus Foundation, United Way, and we're going to keep working on our congressional electeds to get more federal dollars specifically for the health and human services sector. I apologize if you can hear my 5-month-old making some noise in the background. we are also working very hard to connect our members with one another and create avenues of communication and advocacy and collaboration in a unique way. And one example of that is through jobs. A lot of our organizations, just like in the for-profit community, have had to lay off workers of late and furlough workers of late, but a lot of them are hiring right now too. So over the weekend, we worked with our partners at the Wonder Jam to create a jobs board. So right now, if you're looking for work, you can go to our website, humanservicechamber.org, and look at all the jobs that are available from our nonprofit organizations. We have about 125 listed right now. That number is going to keep going up as we get more and more online. So we're grateful to have that resource available for the community. I would also encourage you, if you're looking for pandemic childcare, go to the website for Action for Children. They have created an interactive map that's really useful, in addition to a lot of the other services that Councilmember Tyson listed earlier, including the food bank website and the resources that are there. A lot of our agencies have developed specific resources for this crisis, and we're working to create a receptacle for all of those so we can get information out. The last thing I would mention is that we put a survey out to our members in conjunction with United Way last week to try and get a sense of where the nonprofit community was at. And unfortunately, it's not the prettiest of pictures. 66% of respondents have already canceled or postponed fundraising events. That means dollars aren't getting to our agencies that are trying to provide the services right now. 24% of our agencies had already laid off or furloughed workers. That number is going to keep going up. We know that that's an unfortunate consequence of this crisis as well. But at the same time, a significant percentage of our organizations have found a way to continue providing services, whether in person or through various forms of technology. I'm really proud of the work that our agencies are doing, working in conjunction with health systems in Columbus and Franklin County Public Health and government officials and business and philanthropic organizations, and you name it. We're trying to make it happen at a time when the needs are absolutely unprecedented. So with that, thank you for the time and the chance to share a little bit with all of you. Happy to answer any questions that might be out there.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson, Chair Tyson, and to Mike Corey. I was just informed that we have nearly 300 folks that are participating with us right now in the Teletown Hall. So this information that we're getting out is getting into the directly to our residents. So thank you for that information. We have a couple of questions. This first one, maybe Councilmember Tyson might be able to take a shot at. It's from Kathleen Miner on the West Side, and she asked, what is the city doing to check on older adults living alone to make sure that they are okay during this crisis? This is open to either of you.
So I think that some things we're doing is, one, we are focused on working with the Life Care Alliance. I mean, we support the Meals on Wheels program, and that if we can, I'm sorry, make sure I have my notes in front of me here. I'm sorry, I have all these. Yes, so the Meals on Wheels is certainly a resource that, and they go to delivering meals for mostly individuals that are over 60 years old, and they still do for some under that for have certain medical issues. But I would suggest that since they're going and knocking on doors, and generally of our seniors, that there is an opportunity to check on them in that way. There's another way that we have been funding, and certainly Councilman Mitch Brown has been supportive of the Clintonville Beachwald Community Resource Center, and they are offering they're delivering meals to our seniors, and they have a friendly phone hotline that the seniors can call at 614-993-3614, and so. I think those are two of our agencies that are certainly focused on the seniors. I also, and this is just something that I think the churches are also focused on. I know that my particular church, we were asked to call our seniors and to check on them. And so those of us, the deacons at our church, have also, so we've called all the seniors to see how they're doing. And so I think there's an opportunity for churches to, again, to check on their seniors also.
You're right. You're right. Our church is doing the similar thing. And I know that there's a group out there that's also working to close those social gaps with seniors as well. I think it's the Can't Stop Columbus group has done some really cool work in that space. We have one more question, then I'm going to open it up to council members if they have any questions Councilmember Tyson.
One more thing I want to mention. So I
Please.
know we have funded, the Columbus Network of Villages and the village in the Ville. And so they're focused on working with our seniors. And if any of your seniors are in need, it can call 614-268-3539. Thank you.
All right. Next question I have is from Rona Pontawe. I'm sure I messed it up and I apologize, Miss Rona. What are the ways in which we can volunteer our expertise, experience, or ideas to help during this pandemic? Mike, you might have that.
Sure. Fortunately, there are lots of ways in which you can be involved right now. Unfortunately, one of the first programs that a lot of agencies had to cut were actually their volunteer programs because of the nature of this disease. It's very difficult to provide volunteer services in person given the nature of this disease, but there are still a lot of ways to be involved. Let me list a few examples. In terms of the manual labor element of this, there are a lot of things you can do both remotely and in person safely. Life Care Alliance, Mid-Ohio Food Bank are both still engaging with volunteers. I would suggest going to givebesa.org. That's givebesa.org. There are a number of volunteer opportunities there, and they're being very thoughtful about how they're approaching all of the safety measures to make sure everyone is protected, of course, to provide a range of services, both serving meals, packing boxes of food, delivering things. There's lots and lots of ways to be engaged in that regard. Another tool is called the Point app. It's both a website and an app on your phone, and that has a number of volunteer opportunities as well across the nonprofit sector. And third, the United Way has a tool called Volunteer United on their website that has a number of volunteer opportunities as well. If you're in the IT space, there is a group that you mentioned, Council President Hardin, called Can't Stop Columbus. I think that's up to well over 500 volunteers from across sectors in the community, and they're tackling a range of projects to assist nonprofits and other organizations with a range of immediate needs. In fact, we're working with them on a couple of projects as well. So if you're in that, if you have that kind of skill set, you can be involved there. The other thing I would say is that everyone right now can do a couple of things. One of them is to stay safe. We need people to stay healthy. That means staying home. That's a way of volunteering and contributing right now. That is absolutely elemental to everyone's health because there are a lot of folks out there that have to be out there on the ground providing services, whether they're in the hospitals, whether they're in sanitation, whether they're doing a number of other tasks, whether they're social workers or caseworkers. They have to be out there. The best thing we can do for them is stay healthy as much as we possibly can. The other piece is philanthropic. And I hate to hammer away at the dollar component of this, but the federal stimulus that just came out in the past couple of days didn't include any money specifically for nonprofit organizations. We hope that that's going to change with the next stimulus package that comes from the feds. But in the interim, our nonprofits need financial support. So individual giving can be tremendously powerful, whether you do it through the United Way, the Columbus Foundation, or directly to nonprofits. So that's another way you can be supportive right now. And if you have critical skills that you think you can apply, if you're an attorney, if you're in insurance, if you're a programmer, whatever the case may be, there are lots of ways you can be engaged. And sometimes it just takes reaching out to nonprofits and asking, how can I be of help? Now, I'm not suggesting everyone should call and say, just give me something to do. Not every nonprofit has the capacity to navigate 100 volunteers that just show up and want to be of assistance right now. But follow the social media feeds of the nonprofits that you care about, of the issues that you care about, and get a sense of how you can be of value. And then you'll find a way to be of support at this really critical time.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson, and thank you, Mike Corey, for all your work that you're doing. Next, we're going to hear from Councilmember Favor and Melissa Benson from Legal Aid Society about all the latest in housing news and all the work that they've been doing. However, I first want to throw a quick plug in for our census. An accurate count helps inform how hundreds of billions of dollars will be distributed each year for critical services like health clinics, schools, public transit, and a ton of other projects. I got my invitation to participate in the mail the other day. Ben and I are going to get on the computer tomorrow. We have some time set aside tomorrow evening where we will do our 2020 census together. We're going to go to 2020census.gov. Takes 5 to 10 minutes. We need everybody in Columbus to do it. so that we are all counted and we have the resources to recover once we come out of the COVID era. So now let's talk about how Columbus is helping families stay in their homes. I would like to introduce our housing chair, who's doing a fabulous job and a lot of work right now, Councilmember Shayla Favor and Melissa Benson of Legal Aid Society of Columbus, who are leading the charge to help stabilize our families. Councilmember Favor.
Thank you, Council President Harden, and good afternoon to my council members, to the individuals and professionals who have joined us on this call, as well as to the residents of Columbus. What we know is that evictions, they have long-term negative impacts on families. This is a major problem in our community prior to COVID-19, and we know that it will be exacerbated by this pandemic once it is all said and done. And so with that being said, we understand that our residents would like to see that us at council enact some type of eviction moratorium where evictions and rents and mortgages would be stayed altogether. This is something that I've been personally advocating for since the onset of the pandemic. Unfortunately, the law is clear here. And I wanted to take just a point of privilege just to expand upon this because I see the messages and the request. Your council members absolutely hear you here. But unfortunately, this is something that we legally cannot do. We have an official opinion from our city attorney's office that indicates that a filing moratorium is not allowed. So what does that mean? If you have failed to pay your rent or you violated any type of provision in your rental contract, your landlord may file an eviction against you. A notice of that eviction will be sent to you, but as of March 16th, all eviction hearings will be stayed for at least the next 8 weeks. So there's a difference between an eviction filing and an eviction hearing. So we are still awaiting possible intervention from the state of Ohio. I'm very hopeful that something could turn around, but at this time, a complete eviction moratorium or a rent freeze is not something that we at City Council can legally do. So once again, the Franklin County Municipal Court will not hold any eviction hearings until at least May 11th at this time. While all eviction hearings are suspended, you still have an obligation to pay your rent as normal. If you are unable to keep up with your rent payments, you should talk to your landlord and attempt to reach an agreement in writing. I've heard from a lot of landlords as of lately, including the Columbus Apartment Association, that they are willing to work with tenants. Many of them are entering to what's known as forbearance agreements, coming up with creative ways to assist our residents during this unprecedented time. I urge all of our residents in the city of Columbus to work directly with their landlords to understand what all of your options are. I also wanted to take a moment to highlight some additional work that we're doing in the Housing Committee. Recognizing the need to identify gaps and areas of opportunity to support our residents during COVID-19. I have convened a weekly conference call with all of our housing partners, including the YWCA, United Way, National Church Residents, just to name a few. Based on that weekly conversation, I am compiling a list of resources that our residents and our tenants can access. We're putting that in a Google Doc that anyone could access because we understand that there will be residents that have never had the occasion or the opportunity to interact with the housing market in this capacity before. So whether you've ever faced an eviction or you ever been to the courthouse, or you have faced a financial difficulty, we understand that there'll just be some new people that will be facing some new situations. And so we want to make sure that all of our residents and our landlords are armed with the proper resources to help everyone navigate this tumultuous time. And so with that, we've got a lot of updates to provide you with, but I'm sure there'll be some interesting questions that I will be able to answer some of those questions. And so at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Melissa Benson. She is an amazing attorney with the Legal Aid Society of Columbus. And I must say that the work that the Legal Aid Society does, it runs the gamut, but during this time with the pandemic, they have been a wonderful partner, a great resource, and a trusted advisor for residents as they try to navigate the legal process. So Melissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shayla, and Council President Hardin, thank you for inviting the Legal Aid Society of Columbus to be a part of this teletown hall today. I appreciate it greatly, as do my colleagues. I did want to echo a few of the things that Shayla had spoken about today, particularly with respect to the eviction moratorium that the Franklin County Municipal Court enacted. I wanted to commend the court, its judges, magistrates, the clerk's office. They acted very quickly to enact this moratorium. We were one of the first courts in the state to have this happen, and their proactive measures have definitely helped to protect the safety of Columbus residents. Beyond that, COVID-19 has thrown a lot into up in the air for many people, particularly those who are having difficulty working because of businesses that have been shut down, because of children who are out of school and they need to stay home with them, and particularly communities and individuals who are already on the edge of facing an eviction are struggling and are frightened now. As Councilmember Favor said, if a landlord does file an eviction case today, the court does have to accept that filing under current laws and regulations, but the court will not be scheduling those hearings until at least May 11th. At that time, they will also only be scheduling 100 hearings a day in an effort to limit the number of individuals who are in the courtroom at any given time. For anyone who had a pending eviction case that got canceled starting last week, they will receive a new notice in the mail from the court, and I do urge people to update their address with the court if they have moved, so that the court knows that. The Legal Aid Society of Columbus is still assisting individuals in housing and in every other area that we generally help with. We are no longer taking walk-ins due to COVID-19, but anyone who needs our assistance can contact us and complete an application by telephone at 614-241-2001. And we have also expanded a lot of the work that we are doing in various legal areas to help to address people's questions and concerns about COVID-19. The other thing that we are seeing tenants struggling with is trying to move into new places and having landlords who are concerned about meeting with them in person, and the industry in general trying to figure out ways to adjust to safe practices for COVID-19. And that's something that we are just going to have to figure out as we go along. Unfortunately, we are receiving a lot of wonderful responses from landlords who are being proactive, as well as some responses from landlords who are not as willing to work with tenants. But the one piece of advice that we would give to any tenant who is concerned that they will not be able to pay their rent because of COVID-19 is to act proactively, reach out to their landlord now, and talk with them about what it is that they can do to work out some sort of payment plan ahead of time, because they're not the only person in this situation. A large portion of our population is going to be struggling here, and this is an opportunity for us to work things out and work together in a way that will benefit both landlords and tenants, because landlords want to get paid their rent and tenants want to be able to pay the rent. And I think that we can all work together to get that done.
Thank you, Chair Favor, and thank you to Ms. Melissa. This question has come like over and over and over again, and you guys have kind of already hit on it. The basic question is, if someone is told by their landlord they are being evicted, What are our options right now? What do we do? And the side question, this is it's the same as that question, but a little different. So what should residents do if their landlord tries to evict them informally without going through the court system? Is that a thing? Is that?
Yes, thank you, Council
that-
President Gordon, for that question. It is absolutely a thing. And let me just underscore what Ms. Benson stated earlier, that if you were currently already facing an eviction, you had received some documents from court and you have not received anything in the mail, you can absolutely go to the website to see if your court date has been updated already. But with that being said, at this time, once again, landlords still have the ability to file an eviction, regardless of the situation, whether if it's for non-payment of rent, if it's a criminal violation, or some type of drug abuse, or anything like that. All of the actual eviction hearings are stayed at this time. But what a landlord cannot do is force you out of the house right now without, or your apartment without the court's intervention, without you actually going through the court process. And so if you are facing this situation, I'm going to urge you to, number one, reach out to the police non-emergency line at 614-645-4545. Once again, that's the non-emergency police line at 614-645-4545. If you have received an eviction notice, you do not have to leave your apartment or your home right now. Please call that emergency line. I will also ask that you reach out to our amazing folks at the Legal Aid Society. With that, I'll turn it over to Melissa.
To follow up on that, it is always illegal at any point in time for a landlord to remove a tenant from their rental property without following the eviction process. It is a violation of state law to do that. A landlord has to serve a tenant with a notice to leave, go to court, get an order from the court that says that the tenant has to go, and then a writ is issued by the court, and a service bailiff from the court comes and supervises the set out of the tenant. That is the only way that a landlord can legally force a tenant to move from their property. At this point, the court has stayed that eviction hearing and set out process for the next several months. However, there are tenants who are reasonably concerned that their landlords will try and get them out either by removing them, by turning off their utilities, by changing their locks. These are things that we do see even in the best of times. If that does happen, Legal Aid Society of Columbus can access the court to file motions to get court orders to protect tenants in those circumstances. So if there are tenants who are facing those issues, they absolutely should call us. That is one of the things that we are on the lookout for right now.
Councilmember Favor, we have a question. Just are there resources now for folks who are short on their rent or will be short on their rent to prevent them from eviction?
Absolutely. And I've got a whole host of resources for our residents. So if I'm looking up, I don't want to misspeak. I want to make sure I give all this information to everyone. So one great resource is the Franklin County JFS Emergency Assistance, also known as PRC funding. It's currently available for folks who have at least one minor child or a pregnant woman that's living in the home. And you're at the at or below 165% of poverty. Impact Community Action. Last year, we rolled out the Eviction Prevention Program. And through that program, Council provided $100,000 as a part of that program to Impact, which is tasked with providing emergency assistance for folks who are facing evictions right now. And also dollars went to a Legal Aid Society to make sure that there were dollars available to make sure attorneys could assist folks going through the eviction process. We also have the Community Mediation Services and the Tenant Landlord Mediation Program. CMS provides tenants at imminent risk of eviction and their landlords with mediation services, so the tenant may establish a payment plan in order to get caught back up on rent. There's also the Broad Street Presbyterian Church Compass program. That is a mouthful. Compass provides services to prevent homelessness and stall evictions, allowing families to remain in their homes. COAAA Housing Assistance Program, also known as the HAP program, includes preventative efforts to reduce eviction, displacement, and homelessness for Columbus older adults. And then last on my list, oh no, that was it.
Thank you, Councilmember Favor. And just one question we just got in was maybe this for clarity. Are the courts still evicting for domestic and criminal situations?
Everything, sorry, my apologies. I'm sorry, Council President, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. And that's for you or Miss Melissa. Go ahead and answer, Councilmember Favor.
There are currently no hearings taking place right now, at least until May 11th.
One of the things that I know was on the when the governor and Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor were talking about eviction moratoria, one of the things that they discussed was concerns about situations in which there is domestic violence and somebody needs to be removed from a home because of that. It would be my recommendation as a legal services provider who's done both housing and domestic law over the years that anyone who is struggling in a situation of that sort and needs to get safe contact choices, which is our regional domestic violence shelter, and also that pursuing a civil protection order is a way in which an abuser can be removed from a household, but the remainder of the family can stay in that household and stay safe and protected. So that would be a means by which a family could remove someone to be safe during this situation and still not have to move to an eviction.
And Council President, I may, if for folks at home that still might be struggling with the notion that we can't cease all evictions altogether, that's really one of the major reasons why, because by putting a blanket moratorium on eviction filings altogether, you remove a landlord's ability to protect a tenant who might be in a domestic violence situation, or perhaps someone who is selling drugs out of the home. And so until the courts are able to parse out how you handle that and you determine whether someone who is facing COVID-19 related issues that might affect their ability to pay their rent versus someone who could be committing some type of violation of their rental contract, I think that we'll kind of be in this uncomfortable space. And so I think it's one of the reasons why our courts, our judges decided to just put a temporary moratorium on the hearings for 8 weeks so that they can reassess and get further guidance from the Supreme Court of Ohio.
Thank you, Chair Favor. Thank you to Melissa. Obviously, there's a lot of work that was done there, and we appreciate all the information that you guys are getting out to our residents. Before we move on to our final section about public utilities and water, a quick note on voting. The day before the election, the governor announced that the election was going to be postponed. Then later that day, a judge said that it was still on. Then later that night, Dr. Amy Acton laid down the law saying there would be no in-person voting. So it's super confusing, right? But don't worry, if you haven't voted yet, you still have a chance to vote by mail until April 28th. That means all ballots must be returned to the Board of Election by 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. Any registered voter who has not already cast a ballot can request an absentee application by calling 614-525-3470 or visiting the Franklin County Board of Elections website. Again, that number is 614-525-3470. Now let's talk about how Columbus is helping families in need with essential utility services. I would like to introduce our council member, our chairman, Rob Dorns, and our director, Tracy Davies of the Department of Utilities. Councilmember Dorns, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President Harden. Good to see you and the rest of the colleagues here tonight. Also, we just want to echo your statement about voting. I requested my absentee ballot application, and it came within a day, so it's a pretty quick process. So don't sit out this election. It's very easy to go ahead and make that request to get your ballot. I just want to take a couple of moments to highlight a couple things and then throw it to Director Davies to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the things that we have going on in Department of Public Utilities. First, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joining us here tonight. And more importantly, I want to thank our frontline employees of the City of Columbus, whether they're our police or fire or folks working in public health around the clock, the hundreds of workers in the Department of Public Utilities that are making sure when you turn the tap on, that clean water comes out, and when you turn on the light switch, that power comes on. These are folks that never thought that they'd be having to go do this work during a pandemic, but are doing so and making our city very proud and making that happen. So to those employees who are making those kind of sacrifices to keep our city running, just want to say thank you. The next thing I want to mention before Director Davies updates you on some actions that we've taken from public utilities is that weeks ago, as we saw COVID-19 issues starting to pop up here in the United States, we were very deliberate at the city, at Department of Public Utilities, seeing what we could do to make sure that we were going to preserve certain things, to make sure that, again, the basic functions of infrastructure in this city, water, sewer, power, were accessible for folks during what we now know as the pandemic that's in front of us. So the team at Public Utilities put in a lot of time, both from the leadership level and from folks working day to day out in the field, to make sure that our folks here in the city were going to be served and served well, even while the situation has deteriorated in other places across the country. So I've been very proud of Director Davies, her leadership, and again, the folks every single day that are out there in our community, making sure that, again, that when you turn on the faucet, clean water comes out. When you turn the light switch, power comes on. They've taken a number of steps to help ensure, provide the best sanitation possible for folks in homes, and to ensure people have access to the utilities that they need. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Director Davies.
Thank you, Councilmember Dorans. Just wanted to reiterate what the council member said and really take the opportunity while I have it to thank our employees who are from AFSCME Local 1632, CWA Local 4502, and our management team for all they are doing. We're a department of about 1,200 people strong, and many of our team members don't have the opportunity to stay home. So these are our people who are at our water plants, our wastewater treatment plants. They're keeping the power on. There are utility line locators, our inspectors, our sewer maintenance workers, our water distribution workers, our fiscal staff who's paying our bills and processing our claims, our safety team, our call center and billing staff, and that's just to name a few people. So I just want to take a quick opportunity to say thank you to all those folks for continuing to come into work every day. As the council member said, we have stopped all water and power disconnections due to non-payment. We've also gone back to reconnect our water customers who had been most recently disconnected. We're going back to January to do that. So if people have specific concerns, they're welcome to call into our call center at 614-645-8276. I do want to reiterate that we do have a low income discount and a senior discount that is online, and people can get that information. We are going to continue to send bills out during this time period, but again, just reiterate, we are not going to disconnect anyone's utility service for non-payment. I also want to let everybody know their drinking water is safe. I know there is a run on bottled water, but we are doing everything to ensure that your drinking water will continue to be safe. Also, just a reminder, I think everybody's seen some articles in the paper and on the news to remind people there's also a run on toilet paper, and for people to not flush anything other than toilet paper down their toilet. That can cause sewer backups and lots of other issues. So please do not flush anything other than toilet paper. We're also continuing to operate our department on a day-to-day basis. We have staff members in every day. We have made operational changes so that we can have minimal staffing on hand so that we can spread out our shifts. Our customer service center, we've had to change our call hours so that we can have the least amount of people as possible in the call center. We have about 10 people per day taking calls, so call times are longer. We are open from 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and the number again is 614-645-8276. You can also email the team. The information's on the website, but it's utilityleadrep@columbus.gov. No need to call if you're worried about disconnection. Again, I know I keep saying it, but we are not going to disconnect your utility services. So if you have other needs or concerns, please feel free to call. If you have an emergency situation, we do have 24/7 numbers located on our website. Feel free to look at those if you have a water issue, a sewer issue, or a power issue. Again, our staff is out there working every day. It might take us a little bit longer to get to all of our water leaks to fix them, but we're here on a daily basis. We have the ability to bring staff in if an emergency arises and get all hands on deck if needed. But again, we're trying to space out our shifting so that we have the least amount of people possible in at work at one time. And I want to thank the council members and President Hardin for the opportunity to participate today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Director. The one question that we have is specific to any programs that the department may have to assist financially strapped, lower income residents and seniors, specifically seniors. Is there?
Yes, thanks, Council President. We do have a 20% discount on our water and sewer usage charges. Again, call our customer service call center and we can help you with that. We do follow, it's based on the federal poverty levels, so we also have some other places we can refer people to for financial assistance should they need it.
And those discount programs are in place year round. So folks that should be able to access those, even not in times in which we're dealing with the COVID-19 situation. One of the things I know the department, a lot of other folks have wanted to focus on is, getting more seniors and low-income folks who are eligible for those discount programs to apply. And we've done a number of things over the years to try and advertise those, but this is a good as time as any in order to make sure that folks are not leaving any kind of money on the table that they would otherwise be able to have by getting access to those discount programs.
Thank you, Chair Dorrance. With that, we don't have any more questions that are coming in. I'd like to open it up to any of my colleagues if they'd like to have any closing comments, either presenters or council members. Councilmember Favor, we'll start with Councilmember Favor.
Thank you, Council President Hardin. One thing we didn't have the opportunity to discuss was the state of our homeless and as it relates to COVID-19 and our response. So just wanted to relay the message that the Community Shelter Board, the YMCA, YWCA, and other partners are working hard to ensure that our families and individuals are housing insecure are staying in shelter at this time. And so generally around this time, the seasonal overflow will end. Our shelters will remain open until this pandemic is over. The YMCA downtown has opened its location and extended it for even more overflow capacity. The shelter has opened at Dodge Recreation Center to also encourage social distancing. We're continuing to explore different options creatively to provide some type of hand washing stations and for folks who are transient and may not elect to go to a shelter right away. And our shelters are also hiring individuals who are looking to work as staff there. And so we are actively working to fight every day to protect our most vulnerable residents, which also includes folks who are experiencing homelessness at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Favor. Councilmember Remy, do you have any comments?
Get me off of mute. Sorry.
Councilmember, you muted yourself.
Oh, I
There we
muted.
go. There
Okay.
we go.
So I didn't have mute on this whole time. Good thing I wasn't singing or something. literally, I just want to say thank you, especially to those that are out on the front lines, doing the hard work every single day. We know that, every time I walk into a grocery store, or those people that are really essential workers, they're putting themselves at risk. And we know that for the rest of us, we're very appreciative that they're there. Same with our city workers. Director Davies talked about so many of them that are working out in the real world every day, and we know that they take a risk every time they do that. So thank you for putting this together to get today. I'm really excited to see as many people as we did get on, and help look forward to the future ones to come. So thank you so much.
All right, I'm gonna go to Councilmember Tyson, then to President Pro Tem. Tyson first, and then we'll go with President Pro Tem.
I too just want to say thank you to all the residents that have tuned in this afternoon to gather more information that will hopefully help them as they navigate these difficult times that we're in right now. I also want to give a special really shout out to, again, the social service agencies and the work that they're doing to work with our individuals who have been their most vulnerable. And certainly we know that based upon individuals being furloughed right now, individuals that have never been in this situation, but they are really relying on these organizations. So I really want to say thank you to them. And again, I want to say thank you to all of our leaders who are working really hard in this community during this very difficult time to be able to make sure that Columbus is moving forward. And my office also, again, please call my office if you have any human service needs, or any needs, but especially around human service and workforce. Please call 614-645-2932. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to President Pro Tem, and then we'll finish it out with Councilmember Dorns if he has any closing remarks. President Pro Tem.
Thank you, President Harden. I want to echo everyone's thanks for frontline workers and for every single one of you who is doing the really important work every day of staying home. I know it doesn't feel like an act of greatness, but it is an act of great compassion for you to do whatever you can to comply with the governor's stay-at-home order. So we appreciate you. I also know that it is a scary time, and I will speak for myself, but I know I see it around me. We all feel very vulnerable right now. We feel nervous because we're not really sure what's coming. I want to thank Edward Johnson for being really, in many ways, our navigator in the storm for council, keeping us up to date on what's happening in this public health crisis. But one thing I've grappled with is no matter how much information we have, it is a very vulnerable time. So I would ask ourselves and anyone who's tuned in to remember that as vulnerable as you feel, there are so many people much more vulnerable in this moment. If you have the ability or the capacity, please check in on your folks, right? Check in on the people in your life whom you love and cannot see right now. Check in on people whom you don't know, who live down your block. I have had a really inspirational journey through the Columbus Dispatch series on the helpers. And one that sticks with me is a couple children, kids, I think 11, 12-year-old, went down the street and held a porch concert. They had a cello and I believe a violin. They held a porch concert for their elderly neighbor. She sat there 6 to 8 feet away from them, and think about the joy that she will experience from those 30 minutes of their time for days to come. So I just want to, my parting words are that a plea really for each of us to think about who in our lives or who down our street can we improve, their experience in this very vulnerable time. Thank you again for tuning in with us, and thank you to my colleagues for all being there in every way we can throughout this crisis. Thanks, President Harden.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Dorn.
Thanks, Council President Harden and President Pro Tem Brown for that great message. I just wanted to mention one last thing. I think we've all heard Governor DeWine and Dr. Amy Akin talk about flattening the curve, and that has largely to do with us staying home. And I know we all like to, go for that daily walk around the block or take the dog for a walk or whatever you can to alleviate a little bit of the stir craziness that we have. If you follow me on social media, I'm a runner. I'm not a very quick one, but I do my best. I just want to say when you're out there doing those activities, whether it's to go for a run, walk, or bike, please maintain that 6 feet social distance. You can think that you just not doing or moving it when someone's coming through doesn't make that big of a difference. But I can tell you this last weekend when I was out in the bike trail, we had some nice weather and there's a lot of people out there, and most folks were doing a wonderful job of keeping that distance to make sure that everyone was staying healthy. A couple of folks were not doing such a great job. And, it was interesting to see folks on the bike path all sort of acknowledge that and sort of make a comment to that person to try and do a little bit better. So please, when you're out there outdoors, maintain that social distance so that hopefully we all can get through this sooner than later. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Dorns. We have our final council member. His picture wasn't up there, but he has been here this entire time. And so I couldn't see him waving to give his final remark. With that, our council member, our chair of public safety, Councilmember Mitch Brown.
Thank you, Council President Harden. I think all of my colleagues and all of our colleagues have expressed all the things that are really important, and certainly to say thank you for all those who are on the front lines, and certainly, of course, our first responders, our police officers, our firefighters, our nurses, and our doctors. But I'd like to say one thing in regards to what President Pro Tem mentioned. Reach out and call someone, a senior citizen, whether you know them, whether you don't know them, and make sure you make that contact because, again, as Councilmember Dorn just said, some of us are indoors and get a little stir crazy. A phone call goes a long, long way just to check on someone. And I think that has great importance as we work together to get through this crisis. And we will get through this crisis because we have good leadership and you, Council President, and certainly in our mayor and in our governor. And that's been displayed. And I think that is very, very significant for all of us to appreciate. So on behalf of myself, a senior citizen, I appreciate all the hard work that everyone is contributing. So thank you.
Thank you, council member. And thank you to all of my colleagues. I think that this was a good service to our community. And so I'm excited to announce that we'll be back next week, April 7th at 4 p.m. The colleagues that we didn't hear from presenting will be presenting next week. Councilmember Remy, Councilmember Mitch Brown, President Pro Tem Elizabeth Brown will all be presenting. We'll all be back here at 4 p.m. for a teletown hall. And so we're really excited. We hope that this was of value. I want to remind everyone that you can find a huge list of resources at columbus.gov/COVID-19 resources. Which is a one-stop shop for resources that have been compiled by the city. And in conclusion, I just want to thank everyone for the kindness and grace that our community has exhibited over the past month. If we are able to maintain a silver lining of a sliver of compassion that our city has demonstrated during this crisis, Columbus will be a kinder and a more inclusive community afterwards. And so just echoing everybody's sentiments that we're all in this together. We're all working to flatten the curve and get on the other side of this. Thank you, Columbus. Thank you for participating. We'll be getting, this will be up on YouTube again so that folks can get this information. Thank you, council members. Thank you, Columbus. Thank you, directors.